The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You here at WCWP.org, 88.1 FM on your radio. And also you can access Project Independence and You on the WCWP radio app. Today we have a special show. It's a unique show. Kristina Liu, who is the radio show producer, who produces every single show, will be co-hosting along with me. So we are dual co-hosts, and we'll be speaking today with Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly is the executive director for the town of North Hempstead, SWMA, and commissioner of the town of North Hempstead Department of Solid Waste. So that's quite a long title, Mike, but welcome to the show. It's great to see you. We are actually doing this on Zoom too, so it's not just radio. So we do get to see our guests on Zoom.
Right, you can't escape the radio show now that it's televised.
Totally. So welcome to the show. We have a lot of, good questions about recycling and garbage and where does it really go? I was always fascinated by, they take the garbage, it goes in the truck, and we kind of know what happens with the garbage truck, right? It goes to a dump or where it goes to, get out of the truck. We'll talk about that. But I'm curious more about the recycling because there's so many more steps after we recycle. So I don't know if we're going out of order. But that's the first thing I really wanted to ask you that I've always been so curious about. When it comes back to you, you've got your bottles or your cans, and I'm not really even sure if you collect glass anymore, but what are the different kinds of recycled items in a home for our residents? And how does it process? Where does it go? And where can we see that recycled stuff again after it's been recycled?
Sure, and thanks very much for having me on the show today. When it comes to what you can recycle in the town, the basic guidelines are pretty simple. You can recycle metal containers, you can recycle numbers 1 and 2 plastic containers, you can recycle glass, and you can recycle cardboard, paper, newspaper. When we say glass, we mean glass bottles, not sheet glass, those kinds of things. So that's what gets picked up on the residential collection routes in the town. And then that material gets brought to the North Hempstead transfer station where it's sorted into what we call the commingled pile, which is your plastic, glass, and cans, as well as your paper, newspaper pile. And then from there, that material gets picked up by our recycling contractor, Omni Recycling, and gets brought to their recycling facility for additional sorting and sale of the recyclables, essentially.
Who would buy the recyclable materials at that point?
At that point, it would be it could be additional recycling brokers, it could be manufacturers. Depending on the type of material that you're selling, it would be somebody different. So you'd have somebody who's interested in 1 and 2 plastic, somebody who's interested in the metal, someone who's interested in the glass, someone who's interested in the paper. So at that point, it would get sold to those essential, I'll call them endpoints. It would get sent to those endpoints, and then get recreated into something else. And what that something else is completely up to them. That's not something that comes through, doesn't come through us or come through our recycler.
All right.
So, I think too, Mike, like the very basic tenet, I remember many years ago, we were talking about this because it does come up more often than you would think on this show, because everyone here is recycling and you think it's just as simple as, oh, I have a separate bin that I throw my recyclables in and I did my
Right.
part. But there's so many steps that kind of go into before it ends up in that recycling bin, because I remember the last time we talked about there was a way of contaminating, if you didn't properly clean out your sauce container or something.
Yes.
Tell us how that kind of works.
Well, what we tell people is, when you put your recycling into the container, do two things. Number one, only put in your recycling container what we say is collected for recycling. Because if you don't, and you put additional things in there, those things just have to either get sorted out, or if you put enough of, we'll call them contamination into your recycling bin, that load is just going to end up going to a landfill. It's going to end up as garbage, and it's really going to hurt the recycling system as a whole. So we tell people, don't put anything in your recycling bin that's not recyclable. The other thing is cleaning out your recyclables. If a lot of people are very good at it, some people not, and we get a lot of food in the system. And not only does that make recyclables less valuable for sale, but it also creates a mess at the recycling facility. It dirties up the machines, it jams the machines, depending on what you put into your recycling bin. So it's very important that everything that's going in there is clean, and everything that's going in there is what you should be putting in there, what we have in our recycling program.
So things like, this is things I've always been curious about, what you're talking about now. Things like peanut butter. My house, we go through so much peanut butter. Are we supposed to rub the inside? How are we, what should go in there? What condition? And is there, if I'm not doing that, do I just say throw it in the garbage, or?
Right.
We don't ask people to sanitize their recyclables. What we're really looking for is doing your best to clean it. And I know that peanut butter jars can be a little bit challenging. If you can get the peanut butter out of there, get the peanut butter out of there. If you can't get the peanut butter out of the container, that container should just go into the garbage.
Okay. There's that, finger trick with the peanut butter. If you can't get it, you can just put it all out, which I think my kids are doing. So these are just kind of questions that, I think we all have, but I wanted to go back to how many residents do you go to, and do you also do commercial business in the town, or is it just resident homes that you're picking up from?
So North Hempstead has what's called a flow control law. And what that means is all waste that's generated within the town of North Hempstead, except for residential waste in certain of the villages, is required to come to the North Hempstead transfer station. So the transfer station receives residential garbage, commercial garbage, recyclables, yard waste, construction and demolition debris, really any waste that's generated in North Hempstead that's not industrial waste or sludge or things like that. That all has to come to North Hempstead. And the purpose of that is, number one, to fund a solid waste system, but also that we can make sure that materials are, because we're a permitted facility, we're a regulated facility, that we can make sure that materials that are going into the garbage in North Hempstead are being disposed of properly. So we deal with the whole gamut of waste generated in North Hempstead.
So recycle days.
Before about the number 1 and number 2 plastics. I know there's number 5. How many types of plastics are there?
So there are when you talk about numbers, it's generally numbers 1 through 6, and then there's a 7. 7 is miscellaneous. It's if it's not 1 through 6, it's a 7. So 1 and 2 are your polyethylene terephthalate and high density polyethylene. 3 is PVC, 4 is low density polyethylene, 5 is polypropylene, and 6 is polystyrene. Most of what you're going to get, like if you go to the grocery store and you get the bottle of milk or you get the thing of Gatorade, that's going to be 1 or 2 plastic. Number 5 plastic, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, that's plastic that's good for when you're heating things or when you're cooling things, because it's able to withstand those higher or lower temperatures better than 1 or 2 plastic can. So takeout containers, some coffee lids, yogurt containers that you get from the grocery store. A lot of different things are made from number 5 plastic. Unfortunately, 3, 4, and 6 plastic has very, very low to no recyclability. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of things that are made in this country from those kinds of plastics. But 1, 2, and 5 are the ones that we generally we go to. 1 and 2 being in your curbside recycling, and 5 being in our number 5 collection program at the residential drop.
So then the regular ones, the 3 and 4, that just you would put in the straight garbage.
3, 4, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
It goes in the garbage. If you can't find a number on it, put it in the garbage too, because we don't know what it is.
Now, and the number is, just correct me if I'm wrong, it's the little triangle you would find that would actually have it written. So that's how everyone could kind of learn your, because I remember the last time we talked
triangle with the 3 arrows and
right. I know, because after we first talked about it many years ago, I kept like trying to find down all of my stuff because it was something new that I learned.
Right.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I like that fact. That was good.
So let's talk also about cardboard and paper. And I mean, boxes of food that you buy that might be frozen in the freezer, and, maybe soda boxes and cereal boxes. I mean, I tend to recycle all of them. I live in the town of Babylon, but I'm sure that there's you guys do a lot of similar recycling. Yes. So what papers can be, what can't be? I remember like years and years ago, they used to say, oh, you can't recycle catalogs or magazines because the paper's shiny. But, I don't know if that still holds today.
Well, you can put magazines and catalogs into your recycling bin. Really, most paper you can put into your recycling program. What I'll do is I'll say, generally, newspaper, cardboard, scrap paper, soft cover books, scrap paper, I think I said that, are all generally recyclable. The trick comes when you have papers that have some other material on it. Like if you get an envelope in the mail and it has a little plastic window on it, the plastic window is not recyclable. So,
oh my God.
So most people will just throw the envelope into the garbage, and that is what most people do because nobody wants to sit there and try to pry off the little plastic window. You can pry off the little plastic window and put the rest of the envelope in recycling, but most people, obviously it's that could be tedious and that could be time consuming. Also, greeting cards is another thing. A lot of greeting cards these days, they get sold, they have glitter on them. They have some kind of metallic or plastic element to them. Unless you can get everything off that greeting card, and that means all the glitter too, then that greeting card should just go into the garbage.
So what happens if there's a miscellaneous envelope? You know what? We'll ask that question because we're going to take a quick break when we come back. You've been listening to WCWP.org, Project Independence and You, and we'll be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
So welcome back to Project Independence and You here at WCWP.org. Kristina, Lou, and I have been speaking with Mike Kelly, who is the Executive Director of the North Hempstead SWMA and also the Commissioner for North Hempstead Solid Waste Department. But before we go on, we have to actually mention what the acronym SWMA stands for. I don't think most people know. We know because we're in the town.
Solid Waste Management Authority.
There you go. Solid Waste Management Authority. So before we went to break, you were talking about the little plastic in the envelopes today. A lot of them in that window don't even have it anymore. It's clear. But how do you catch something like that? If I'm recycling and everyone in my neighborhood's recycling and I throw in one envelope that has a little plastic thing in there, how do you guys catch it?
I mean, it would get caught at the recycling facility. It wouldn't get caught in your, generally, I mean, if somebody may see it sitting there, perhaps, but generally it's not going to get caught in your collections because the collections, they tend to happen as quickly as possible so they can get all the houses. It comes to the transfer station, gets put on a pile and put on a truck that goes to the sorting facility. It's at the sorting facility that those things are weeded out.
Okay. Interesting. So, I mean, Kristina and I have talked a lot about all the things we order. I mean, certainly over COVID, it's increasing, but even before, I know that, we did a lot of ordering with Amazon or whatever. And, my house, by the end of the week, I'm breaking up cardboard boxes and breaking them up and putting all of them in one bigger box. And I'm just curious, does that go in the regular garbage? Does it go in recycle? And, what is the proper way to discard those boxes as opposed to cereal boxes?
So cardboard boxes should go out with your paper recycling. Cardboard boxes are 100% recyclable. They should be folded up, broken down, folded up, tied up. If for some reason you can't tie them up, you can put them in a container, but they must be broken down. We can't just take we had one property in one of our districts recently where the truck showed up to essentially a 50-foot wall of unbroken down boxes. And we had to tell them, no, you have to break down the boxes before you can recycle them. And they did. So that's the only way essentially they're going to fit in the truck. So once they're broken down, they get brought to our transfer facility as recyclables. But a couple of things about cardboard. Number one, it has to be clean. And what I mean by clean is, don't throw out a pizza box. Pizza boxes, even if you think you have a 100% clean pizza box, it's never 100% clean. There's always grease in there or something. So your pizza box should always go into the garbage. If you have, a cardboard box from a delivery that's been sold by oil or something along those lines, that should go in the garbage too. If you have soaking wet cardboard, that should go into the garbage as well. It's just going to get destroyed on the way to the transfer station. But if you have clean or cleanish cardboard that's dry and you can break it down, absolutely put it in the recycling pile on your recycling day, and that will get brought for recycling to the transfer station.
Yes, I've become a professional at breaking down boxes. That was a skill that I really picked up wonderfully. I was very determined to keep it neat because the rate at which they were accumulating was,
your garage just fills up with boxes at some point.
I have this great tool that I use. I got it from Pampered Chef, and you use it. It's actually great for everything. It's a scraper and it's very thin on one end. So you just, break your boxes up that way. Also, if you have anything on the floor that's sticky, you scrapes it right up. It's a great.
Beck just did like a little Pampered Chef commercial.
Pampered Chef. It's really, really good. So getting back to the boxes again. So we have cereal boxes. We have all kinds of food that comes in boxes that we buy at the supermarket. Are those then not recyclable? Are they considered contaminated because maybe in the freezer they get a little damp after you take them out, or?
No, you can still recycle those, and they can go in with your paper recycling.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
It's really,
unless they're dirty, then don't put them in the recycling. Put it in the garbage.
Right, right. So how many, like, it just fascinates me too. The other part now, like with garbage, is it always like amazes me. It's like this endless thing. I mean, how much can really a garbage truck hold? When you see the trucks going door to door to door to door to door. First of all, I always worry about the brakes, but that's just me. Like they keep stopping and going and stopping. But it just seems like it's endless. I mean, and also the thing that, crushes it, like
Right.
what can it not crush? Are these crazy questions? But, these are things that I'm curious about.
Well, the compactor within a garbage truck, it's a hydraulic compactor. So it's going to crush whatever's in there. And, generally how much can a garbage truck hold? We've seen garbage trucks come in and 12, 13 tons. And that's pretty much, what your standard garbage truck, the maximum you can do. A normal truck is coming in somewhere between 5 and 9 tons.
How many
generally.
homes would that be, like generally?
Well, so if you had, every district is different. They do every district differently. Sometimes you get a truck comes in with just a ton on it. I don't know, maybe not a lot of people put out their garbage in that district sometimes, but you can have a truck before it goes to the transfer station serve 600 or 700 homes. And they get all of that into one truck. They bring it to the transfer station, drop it off, and then continue on.
That's a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Because you're right, Beck. It's things you just kind of like, take for granted. You don't even think, necessarily, unless you're Rebecca, who's really pondering the in and outs of this whole thing. But I think
I see a lot going on in the morning out there.
Yeah, but I think it's important, though. It is important to know these things because it's, everybody wants to do their part. And I think it's really clearly a necessity. And it's important to kind of know the breakdown of things. What Mike also want to know? What if we had talked about this in the break, which is something I learned, is that North Hempstead has a double stream recycling system.
Right.
Now, if you, let's say, needed I know a lot of seniors, especially, we get this question, they might need a new recycling bin or the little, the tall one for the plastics or whatnot. So how do they go about if they needed one? Can they get that from you guys? How does that work?
So we used to several years ago sell recycling bins. We haven't done that in a number of years. So we don't have recycling bins to sell or give out. So what we tell people is just buy a recycling bin from a Lowe's or a Home Depot, or you could use, we say, use, green for your plastics and glass and metal, and use blue for your cardboard and paper. But that's not a rule. That's just a good thing to do. It's just a good practice. But you could use any can you want for your recycling, as long as it's labeled like that. And if anybody can contact 311 or contact the Solid Waste Management Authority, we actually have stickers that you can put onto your recycling bins, one for paper, one for one for your commingled, that shows you exactly what, this is the paper can. This is what you can put in here. This is the commingled can. This is what you can put in here. And that also helps the collection companies when they come around, who, so when, they know that something is recyclable, they're not just going to throw it into the garbage. What we're also going to be doing relatively soon over the next month or two is we're going to be mailing these stickers to all the homes, like, the household, like homes, single family homes or 2-family homes that use garbage cans, to everybody. So everybody will have
okay. That's great. We can tell the seniors. They'll be excited to know.
Yeah. So if in my neighborhood, well, where I used to live, not my current location, we had special pickup, when we're putting out, maybe if you're moving or you're renovating or what have you, cleaning out the shed, you have, 30-year-old tricycles or that kind of a thing. Does the town of North Hempstead have a special pickup, or do you encourage people to come down to the dump and drop it off? Like what do you do when you have like those kinds of materials at home that you want to get rid of?
Yeah, like the larger items.
Well, so there's two things you can do. I can speak for our own garbage districts, because there are districts that are not run by us. There are incorporated villages, and everybody has their own rules. So I can speak for our garbage districts in our contracts. If you have, if you need a bulk pickup, like there's you have a couch you want to get rid of. You can call your regular carter, and on one day a week, they will, if you call them and let them know, they will come around and pick up your couch. Now, that's not for like if you're doing a home clean out or something, along those lines where you have a lot of like individual stuff you just need to get rid of. You have two options in that case. If you can bring it to the transfer station yourself, you can bring it on Sundays between 7:30 and 2:30, not this Sunday because it's July 4th. Or you could hire a carting company. You can essentially get a dumpster. So if you have one big thing in our districts, you can call your carter and schedule it to be picked up. If you have a lot of little things, you can either bring it to the transfer station on Sunday, and a fee does apply to that, or you can get your own container.
Is there a limit, Mike, to what you can bring to the transfer station? Like, let's say you have a whole bunch of is there like a certain amount, or it's just?
No, there's no limit as to the amount of stuff you can bring. However, what we do tell people is we limit the type of vehicle you can bring because sometimes it could get a little out of hand. So you could bring a car, an SUV, a pickup truck. If you have a rental van, you could do that too. Okay. The only two things that we don't want people bringing are trucks, like box trucks, or trailers, because there's limited room for trailers.
Right.
It becomes logistically problematic to do that. But other than that, if you wanted to come, you want to bring your van 5 times that day, bring your van 5 times that day, because we charge based on the weight, not really how much you bring.
Right. Okay. Well, that's certainly good to know.
So I'm kind of interested, just like in everybody that we talk to in every facet, whether it's human service agencies or, our own departments, how were you guys impacted by COVID? What did you see happening, maybe staff or, it's kind of scary with, certainly in the beginning where we weren't 100% sure how people were touching things. And then your people are out there collecting garbage and all that. So, I'm curious to see from kind of like the beginning to where we're at now. Of course, Kristina and I were very curious to know how many more boxes you've gotten, because so many people now get deliveries. So maybe we will discuss that when we come back, because right now we have to take a quick break. You've been listening to Project Independence and You on Senior Talk Radio, WCWP.org.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
So welcome back to Project Independence and You at WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, your co-host, guest host, along with Kristina Liu, who is co-hosting too. Usually we have the Kristina Liu hour at the end of the show when we do Senior Talk Radio, but today's been great because we have Kristina on for the full 2 hours. We've been talking with Mike Kelly, who is the Executive Director of the North Hempstead SWMA and the Commissioner for North Hempstead's Department of Solid Waste Management. And before break, we were just curious about the impact that COVID had on your department. I assume more people were home, so were they producing more garbage? People were ordering from everywhere, from food to Amazon to everything. So I'm sure that there was an increase. So I'm just curious how the whole pandemic affected your departments.
So you're right in that a lot of people were home during that time, and we saw a very large uptick in waste coming from residential sources, sometimes as much as 25% more waste than we would normally see from residential sources. But on the other side of that, as businesses shut down because of the pandemic, waste from commercial sources decreased dramatically, and at some points over 50%. So there was a lot more waste coming in from one side, a lot less waste coming in from the other side. Construction and demolition waste obviously decreased because a lot of projects weren't happening during the pandemic. But as you were sort of alluding to before, the cardboard went way up. We started getting a lot more cardboard than we usually would for obvious reasons. Everybody's ordering things off of Amazon or wherever they order things from, and comes in a cardboard box. So, as far as our operation went, aside from just what we were receiving at the transfer station, the pandemic didn't have much of an impact on our operations. There was a time where we did close the residential drop-off for a little over a month and a half. And that was just because you have a lot of people congregating in one place, and we didn't want it to be a place, obviously, for COVID to be transmitted between people. Then we opened it up. We opened it up once every 2 weeks. The reason for that being essentially e-waste, because the COVID, the virus, survives on plastic longer than it survives on other things. So in order to collect e-waste, which we had to physically handle, it would get put into a container. Then we'd have to have that container sit for 3 or 4 days. And then we'd have to have the container emptied, which takes about 3 to 4 days. So you couldn't get it ready for the next week.
Sorry, not everyone may know what e-waste is.
Sure.
And also going back to Kristina's question, or they may not know what 2 streaming lines are. So if you could just kind of inform us about the e-waste now, and then we'll go back to the
Sure. E-waste it's electronic waste. So there are some people who think that's anything with a plug. That's not true. So e-waste is, just from a macro level, it's televisions, computers, computer peripherals like mice and keyboards, hard drives. We collect cell phones as well, DVD players, old VHS players, those giant TVs that we used to have. That's all e-waste. But things like microwaves, air conditioners, blenders, regular home telephones like that used to ring. Those are not e-waste. That's just trash. E-waste used to get collected at the residential drop-off every single week. In the pandemic, because of that issue, we had to go every 2 weeks. And now we've actually taken e-waste entirely out of the residential drop-off, and we have separate events just to collect e-waste in addition to our stop events.
What's something that people think is e-waste that isn't?
We get a lot of air conditioners and microwaves. Those are the biggest thing that we get, that we have to tell people no, that just goes into the garbage.
Now, Mike, if someone has a question, right, they want to know what is, and they might not have access to the internet or looking it up or whatnot, how can they get in touch with you guys to ask those kind of questions?
They can just call 311, and 311 will get the call to us, and we will call the constituent back.
Okay, great.
We'll answer any question that anyone has.
Yeah, because I think, it gets tricky, as you said, and I can imagine it's overwhelming, and everyone thinks, that everything with a plug can go.
Right.
And also, was there regular batteries? Can that just go in the garbage?
Regular alkaline batteries are not hazardous. They can go straight in the garbage. Now, if you have like rechargeable batteries, laptop batteries, car batteries, nickel cadmium batteries, those are hazardous waste, and you have to bring those to a stop event.
No, see, these are good. And the next e-waste event I have, because I printed it out, is Saturday, July 17th at 802 West Shore Road in Port Washington. So if you
that's our facility here where I'm sitting right now is 802.
Yeah,
and that is only town residents.
Only town residents, right?
And this is free, Mike, the e-waste kind of drop off? You don't have to pay anything or?
Yeah, but it's completely free.
Great. That's good.
All of our e-waste events, the pharmaceutical drop-off events, stop events, all that, every single one of them are free. The only thing that we charge for is the use of the residential drop-off on Sundays.
Okay.
So I'm curious now too about yard waste. landscaping. Do you have a day for landscaping that people can put things out? How does that process work?
So two things. If you're doing your own yard work, like you're cutting your own grass, you're trimming your own trees or bushes, all that waste that you generate from that can be put out with your garbage one day a week, whatever day that is. In our garbage districts, that runs from the beginning of April through the middle of December. And for a few months out of the year, we don't collect it because nothing's growing.
That's leaves too, I assume then.
What's that?
Leaves too?
Leaves as well, yes. If you have a landscaper who comes to your house and does the work themselves, all of the waste that they collect, they have to take that with them. If you have a contractor doing it, you're paying a contractor, they should be taking it away with them. That material should not go out at the curb. It should be taken away by the contractor. We get a lot of questions about, sizes and what you can actually put out. We tell people if you're putting out branches, tie them up. They can't be any longer than 4 feet. They can't be any thicker than 4 inches. If you have a tree stump, and somebody took out a tree stump for you, we can't pick up the tree stump. It's just too heavy for the guys to pick up and throw into a truck. But if you follow those rules, tie up your branches, bag up your material. We encourage the use of paper bags, but we don't require it. So you can put it in any bag, but just as long as it's out there properly, it will get picked up.
You brought up something interesting that has changed the way all of us shop. Just talking about plastic bags, because I assume you prefer paper bags over the plastic bags for the yard waste.
Right.
How has that impacted you guys that people now have, for the most part, been forced to shift to not using plastic bags, like for food shopping and that, and we all tend to now be using recycle, and the supermarkets are doing that. So how are we doing? How are we doing with that? I mean, has that made a big impact in North Hempstead, and and maybe how the impact has hit the rest of the country too?
Well, I'm not sure about the impact of it, because we only see the waste coming in, and I haven't seen any noticeable increase in paper bags coming in or noticeable decrease in plastic bags coming in, because people could have plastic bags that have been sitting around their house for years that they're still using and getting rid of. Yeah. Regular old kitchen trash is going to come in a plastic bag anyway, so I'm sure that there are less single-use bags coming in from supermarkets. That's probably true because nobody uses them anymore. But it's not something we keep a metric on.
Right. Right.
But the less you can rely on plastic bags, the better. And also, just as far as recycling goes, please don't put plastic bags or anything that's like a flexible plastic, like a plastic bag. Don't put that in your recycling bin. They're not recyclable. Even if they say they're 1 or 2, they're not recyclable, because when they go to the recycling plant, they get caught in the machines and just wrapped up.
Oh boy. That's
something we call film plastic, and it's just not recyclable.
What about, here's a question that I have. If, say, you're buying a case of water, and the wrapper of the water is plastic, but it's recycled plastic. Also regular baggies, things like that are on the box, they're recycled. What about those kinds of plastic? What number is that? What do we do?
That's what I was referring to as film plastic. And that should never go into a recycled container. Even if it's number 1 or 2, it does not lend itself to being recyclable. So that should just go straight into the garbage.
Wow. And that's all kinds of baggies and saran wraps, even if they're recycled.
Right.
In that way. Okay.
Right. So that's why we encourage the use of reusable materials, like reusable bags. You could go in lieu of saran wrap. You could buy these wax. I have them at home. These wax sheets that seal over things,
wax paper.
Which is very good. and make choices when you shop at the grocery store. If you have a choice between buying something in a can or buying it in a glass bottle, buy it in a can. If you have a choice between buying milk in a paper container or a plastic container, buy the plastic container. Don't buy the paper container. It's not recyclable. Anything that any paper container that feels like it has like a wax on it or anything like that, that is garbage. It is not recyclable. Don't put it in the recycling bin. So, when you go grocery shopping, if you have those choices, if you could buy the plastic container or the 1 and 2 plastic container, buy the 1 and 2 plastic container. If you're buying soda and it's in a and it could come in a glass or a can, buy the can. The can is much more recyclable.
Wow.
So there's a lot of these choices that could be made at a grocery store, which would really help recycling.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
I never even like thought that, I would always be like, oh, let me do the glass. You would think some like that instead of plastic. But
right.
Well, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask a question about, well, wait till we get back. It has to do with jewelry. We'll be right back with Project Independence and You. We've been speaking with Mike Kelly from the Town of North Hempstead SWMA and Solid Waste Department. We'll be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Hi, you've been listening to Project Independence and You, and we are back from our quick break. We only have about 15 minutes left with Mike Kelly, so we're going to get right to it. So you always hear stories on the news, right? Someone threw away their wedding ring. Someone threw away, $10,000 in an envelope, things like that. How often does that actually happen? And are you guys really able to find it? Like what is like one good story to share with us on that?
So it does happen. And actually just recently, I think maybe last week, we had somebody frantically call us because he was at like a business or something, and they were getting rid of papers or something, and the recycler took boxes they weren't supposed to take. So this guy was, very, very upset. He's very, very worried about this. And he called soon enough that we were able to get him to the transfer station and look, and sure enough, there they were. And he found them, and he was very, very happy about finding them. We do get phone calls every so often about somebody says, I think I threw out my engagement ring, or I threw out this valuable thing. And sometimes they call us the next day, and we tell them that truck's already here. The garbage is already gone. It's gone. Yeah. So be careful about your jewelry. Unless you tell us within about an hour, and even then, there's probably not really much we can do about finding something that small at the transfer station.
All right. I don't know. You see that on the news a lot. Someone's lost something valuable, and people are weeding through mountains of garbage, and that kind of thing.
It does happen.
It does. Okay.
Now, we always talk on the show, which might be the most popular program with our seniors that you guys offer, is the STOP program, the Stop Throwing Out Pollutants program. So tell us everything, and especially during this whole COVID time, we've been preaching to everyone to kind of downsize and organize. We've all been in our houses for a very long time. And I think, you start wanting to kind of purge things and get rid of stuff. So what exactly can you get rid of at the STOP program?
Yeah, we actually just had our STOP program this past Saturday at the Westbury High School, and it was extremely successful. We had almost 1,500 cars that day, which is that's the second most cars we've had in a day. That was second only to the one that we had in April. So a STOP event, we do 4 things at a STOP event. We do household hazardous waste, electronic waste. We have a station for shredding documents. And we have a station for donating clothes, textile, household goods to Big Brothers Big Sisters. So our next event will be in September, and we'll have another one in November as well. And they'll both be at North Hempstead Beach Park.
Mhm.
The household hazardous waste is for your household chemicals. Really anything under the sink, as far as the chemical goes that you could bring it there. Please bring it there. Do not throw it in the garbage. Do not pour it down the sink, because that leads to water contamination, bringing it to the garbage. You could also, depending on where it goes after that, could also lead to contaminating water supplies. So those materials is very important that they brought to the stop event so it can be handled responsibly. For electronic waste is essentially what I had said before as to what we take as far as electronic waste: TVs, monitors, computers, computer peripherals, cell phones. Those are kind of our biggest ones. Shredding, up to 6 boxes you can bring, and they will shred it right there in the truck right in front of you. And really, if you have any household goods that you want to donate, you can bring them to Big Brothers Big Sisters at that point.
And it's pretty much, we've heard other people talk about, like I said, it's a very utilized program, and it's essentially you stay in your car, right? And there's different kind of stations, and you could, and your guys take it out and whatnot, right?
Yes, exactly. Our contractors will take it out of the car for you. One thing about household hazardous waste events, we say we accept paint. It's very popular that people bring hazardous paints like oil-based paints or lead paints, if you have it, I guess, if you haven't sitting around for the last 60 years, or things like that. Those kind of chemical paints. But regular latex paint is not hazardous, and it can be thrown out in the regular garbage as long as it's dried out.
Dried out, right.
And you can dry it out in 2 ways. You can leave the can out in a hot day, it will dry out. Or you can put it in a box with plastic in it, and I swear, kitty litter. If you pour it on the kitty litter, it'll dry out as well too. So we encourage people to do that at their homes rather than bring it to the stop event, because when it's brought to the stop event, we essentially put it in a container where it dries out and it gets thrown out as regular garbage at that point. So also, if you're just bringing latex paint to a stop event, that's one more car we have at the event, which also contributes to
Like, what about a lot of people, a lot of residents have pools, that require chlorine tabs and all kinds of things like that.
Yes.
When the chlorine bin, there's like a plastic one, is empty, but it still has contained chlorine for several months as you use tabs each day. But it is like normally what you would think you could recycle. What do we do with things like that?
When you bring a container to a stop event, we don't give the container back. So if you have chlorine that's in a container, that container with the chlorine goes to the household hazardous waste contractor and they take it away.
But I mean, what if the container's empty but has had the chlorine in it for the season? Is that then recyclable?
If you have an empty container, as long as it doesn't have anything corrosive, as long as it, and then it'll be on the label, it'll say corrosive, right? As long as it's not corrosive, you can take that empty container and put it in the recycling. Just obviously wash it out. But if you have an empty container, that can go into the recycling.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, there's a whole list of all the specifics that is, and once again, that's like you can call 3114 and get, my American flag just crashed down in the background. So you can call and get the specific details, because there's a whole list of, the ins and outs of what is acceptable. And I know that many years ago, when we had first started the radio show, you guys also took medicine at that time. That kind of took a shift.
Right.
You can no longer bring, obviously, medicines to the stop event.
That's
you
right.
You guys do Shed the Meds. So tell us a little bit about Shed the Meds.
So Shed the Meds, we started doing Shed the Meds events last year. We resumed them. We hadn't had them for a number of years for a couple of reasons. We started doing them again last year. We thought they were very important. It was very successful last September. It was even more successful this past May when we had our event, and we're having our next event in December at Tully Park. Pharmaceuticals includes anything you get by prescription, anything you get over the counter. However, we don't take sharps. So if you have, needles or EpiPens, whether they're used or not, those things we don't take. We also don't take aerosols either, because these things go to an incinerator and they can explode in the incinerator. So they're run by us, but they're also managed by the Nassau County Police Department. So if the county tells us that they don't take certain things, we can't take them.
What do we do with aerosols, Mike? What do people do with aerosol bottles? I mean, so many things come in that way.
Well, I mean, a lot of people throw them in the garbage anyway, so it's not, it's unfortunately they're not recyclable because we don't know what's inside them, even if they are made of metal. So they throw them in the garbage anyway. What we tell people is use them until they're done and then throw them out. Like don't throw out a full bottle because it can still be under pressure.
Okay, so as long as it's emptied completely, it's safer.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also see that you guys don't take any kind of ointment either at those programs.
Right.
So you have an ointment. How do you get rid of, let's say you have an ointment that didn't, the problem is we're all prescribed so many things to kind of try that might not work. So how would you dispose of some kind of ointment?
Well, anything that we don't take at a stop event, anything that we don't take at a pharmaceutical event, or anything that's not listed for recyclables is trash. Oh, unless it's medical waste, that's a whole different story.
Right.
But if it doesn't fall into any of those categories, it is trash.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, and the next one is December. So December 11th at Michael J. Tully Park. So we always advise people, in your garage or your basement, it's kind of just little by little. You can gather these things. So when the time comes that one of these events happen, you could ship it. It's all ready to go and dispose of it properly. So.
Right.
And we'll have to give a shout out to Otto because our favorite co-host Otto is very committed to all these different events and kind of partaking. He makes use of all of them. So we want to get all of Otto's questions answered, I think, on this program.
Sure.
So being a homeowner, and I'm so, interested in doing recycling right and trying to figure it out. Do you guys plan on it? Do you have any kind of diagram? I see you have this we have a really nice information that we were sent. That,
I found this on the town website.
Yeah. Where can someone get that? And do you send that out? Does it go out from the town in a calendar? Is it in the newsletters?
Yeah, and there's also on the website, because when I was doing research, I didn't print this out for you, Beck, because it's gigantic, so many pages.
Okay.
But it's a really comprehensive brochure with all the real specifics of how to do everything and what's included. So.
Yeah, and exactly that brochure, which we sent out a couple of years ago to every household, is online. Also, that one pager that you just held up.
Yeah.
When we do our sticker mailing that I was describing before, that
Right.
one pager is going to come with it too.
Oh, great.
So that's going to go to every household. But again, if you ever want any of those materials, you can call 311. 311 will put it through to us, and we'll fulfill that.
Yeah, that's
That's
great
good.
because it certainly is, I think everyone, especially, in North Hempstead, there's such a push to keep everything, green and to have these kind of new initiatives and do things, as Beck said, the right way. If you're going to go through the trouble of recycling, you kind of want to do it, the right way. So you're doing your part. And now we know that our cardboard boxes are helping the world out, Beck. So we're just like superheroes over here with our Amazon boxes.
I know. So we're doing right. We're helping. We're helping.
Yes,
We're doing the right.
that's what I'm going to tell my husband. When he's like, "Oh, here's another box," I'm helping the world.
Babe, this is good. This ordering is good. But wow, we have come to an hour with Mike Kelly. Mike, thank you for coming on the show and just giving us so much information. And it's really good to know too that if you're a town resident, you can call 311 or 869-6311 with any questions for the solid waste department, SWMA. So again, thank you so much, Mike. I'm sure we'll have you back, and we will be right back with Project Independence and You.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.